Music really means everything to me. I am a creative musician, so in addition to playing contemporary music on the bass clarinet, I also compose my own music for the instrument, and I also improvise. And I really believe that when you are a musician that takes part in that creative process and creating original material, I mean, there's nothing like it. People describe music as the universal language, and I believe very much that is the case. And I have found that when I'm playing the bass clarinet, it feels like an extension of myself. It feels like another part of my body. And it also feels like when I am playing the instrument and when I am creating, and particularly when I'm improvising on the bass clarinet, it feels like I am expressing myself and I'm communicating to others in ways that I simply can't without the instrument and without music. And I don't think that it's just me that experiences music that way. I believe that it's a very, very valuable tool, that it can express, extremely deep thoughts and emotions to other people, and that it just has layers upon layers of meaningfulness. And there really is no other art form that's quite like it. So I believe that I most likely first heard the bass clarinet in cartoons and in television and in movies. When I first started playing the bass clarinet, I was not overly familiar with the instrument. In fact, I started playing fairly late. I was in high school, and I didn't want to play the bass clarinet initially. I actually wanted to play the saxophone, and my teacher told me that we didn't have enough saxophones for everyone who wanted to play, so they gave me the bass clarinet. And at the time, I really had no knowledge of it, so I fell in love with it pretty well instantly, and I was very thankful that I didn't end up playing the saxophone, because I think the bass clarinet is better in every way. But in terms of when I first heard it, I think before I even knew what the bass clarinet was, I absolutely heard it. In cartoons I would watch, such as the Flintstones. You do hear bass clarinet in that show. I also heard it a lot in old Star Trek episodes, and definitely hearing bass clarinet in movie music for sure. And it always seemed like, and it still kind of seems like, hearing the bass clarinet kind of predicts that a character is going to die, or something tragic is going to happen to them. If you really pay attention to bass clarinet in movie music and television music, that's often the way it goes, which I think is both funny and interesting. I remember my first bass clarinet concert very clearly, and I was I believe I was in second year university in an undergraduate program at the time. I was studying bass clarinet, and my teacher took me to Toronto. We both lived in and actually I still live in a community called Kitchener-Waterloo, which is about an hour west of Toronto. So it was a close place to drive to, and my teacher took me to see Henri Bach play a bass clarinet recital in downtown Toronto, and I remember that he was playing with a bass oboe player, and I wish I could remember that person's name, but unfortunately I can't. And but I do remember that their ensemble, they were a duo, and their ensemble was called Bass Effect. And it was really, really, really interesting. Or sorry, it was not Bass Effect. It was Bass Instinct was the band's name, and I had never heard a bass clarinet in that capacity. That was the first time that I heard extended techniques being used on the bass clarinet. It was the first time I'd heard the bass clarinet in a duo setting, and it was the first time that I heard that kind of contemporary music that was so difficult. Like I couldn't even, at the time, I couldn't wrap my head around, ever being able to play music like that. I do play music like that now, but I remember it being, very life-altering experience of just hearing, my instrument played in this way, and hearing some of the incredible contemporary chamber music that existed for the instrument at the time, because I wasn't getting music like that to play when I was an undergraduate. I did later in graduate school, but it just seemed so compelling and so complex at the time that it just it made me fall in love with the instrument even more, and I have been such a fan of Henri Bach's music ever since we got in touch shortly after I saw that concert, and we remained in touch for a number of years. And although I have not reached out to him in some time, I did also get to see him perform in Rotterdam back in, I believe it was 2006. It was either 2005 or 6 when they held the World Bass Clarinet Convention there, which I was a part of. And again, just seeing and hearing all the musicians there and just being a part of that was incredible. And I love being part of this world community of bass clarinet players and bass clarinet enthusiasts. It's hard for me to isolate, one moment in my career that I think sticks out. So I'm probably going to mention a few of them. One of them would be what I just mentioned in the previous question, was getting to participate in and perform a recital at the World Bass Clarinet Convention in Rotterdam a number of years ago. It was either 2005 or 6. I can't exactly remember when it was. So that was a big one, and that was probably one of the first ones for me. In addition to that, I would say doing a cross-Canada tour a number of years ago was huge for me. In that tour, I visited 10 different cities across Canada from coast to coast, and I did each concert was featured a solo set of me performing some of my own compositions and improvisations. So it was 100% my own music, and that was a really big deal for me, and really, I think, influenced a lot of the later directions in my career. In addition to that, I love teaching. I love working with young artists and seeing not just their passion for music and contemporary music, but seeing their passion for the bass clarinet is something that's really, really wonderful, and I love doing that. And I get to do that I do it privately as well as at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. And then in addition to that, I also have another life where I work as an artistic director of a concert presenter and producer called Numis. And for that, I love bringing in really top-notch contemporary artists from around the world. And of course, I try to represent the bass clarinet in that series very well. I play in the series a fair bit, and I've invited a number of wonderful bass clarinetists to play. And lastly, I think one of the other really memorable moments in my career too was a number of years ago, I was asked to perform a short improvised duo with the great Laurie Friedman, and I consider Laurie Friedman to be Canada's greatest bass clarinet player of all time, and I studied with Laurie. She was a teacher of mine a number of years ago. She influenced me greatly, and definitely, I think, influenced the direction of my career and my performance interests. And it was a dream come true. a number of years ago when the two of us performed a duo, and we did it as part of an outdoor setting. We were in a park with there was a like a little lake in the park with a little island, and Laurie was on the island and I was on the other side of the shore, and we were basically calling to each other with our bass clarinets and improvising all of our material, and it was something really, really special, and I don't think that I will ever forget that. And I guess if I was going to add one more thing, making albums, and I would say that I'm extremely proud of my most recent album, which features all solo material and all my own original compositions and improvisations, and the album is called Masked. It came out in 2019, and it probably is my proudest achievement as a performer to date. I've been fortunate enough to be in the position to be giving young people advice, starting with the bass clarinet. And it's, to be honest, it's a really wonderful position to be in, because I unfortunately didn't have the same kind of support when I was, up and coming and starting with the instrument and starting with my career, like I think a lot of young people today have. Unfortunately, when I was a student, as an undergraduate at that time in Canada, the vast majority of the Canadian universities would not accept anyone studying bass clarinet as a major. You had to study clarinet, and they considered bass clarinet to be a secondary instrument. I was fortunate enough to find a school that I could study bass clarinet as an undergrad, that school being the University of Waterloo. And then I found another one where I could do my master's degree in performance, which was the University of Calgary. And I had wonderful experiences at those two universities, had wonderful teachers at both universities. But at the time, outside of those two schools, and to a certain extent even inside those schools, I kept getting the message that you can't have a career in bass clarinet, no future in it, can't study this instrument seriously, this is ridiculous, you shouldn't be allowed to do this. And which is kind of funny now, because I have made a career out of playing bass clarinet, and I now teach bass clarinet at one of the schools that wouldn't allow me to study it when I was an undergrad. And so I think that young people today, while I don't think they necessarily are experiencing those same kinds of roadblocks that I did, certainly the advice I would give them is to never listen to the naysayers. Do not listen to people that try to tell you that, this is not a serious instrument of study. There's no career in it, because you know what? I mean, I don't know what the music scene is in other countries, but in Canada, most of the people studying music are never going to get an orchestral position. So it doesn't matter if you study clarinet or not. And I made the decision to not study clarinet. I only play bass clarinet. I own a clarinet, but I basically never play it. I don't put any work into that. It's not a part of my professional life. So I would certainly encourage any young artist today that I was mentoring that you can make that choice too. Yes, the bass clarinet is part of the clarinet family, but if you don't want to learn the whole family, you don't have to. You really need to just follow your heart. If your heart is with the bass clarinet and only the bass clarinet, then you need to just do that and pursue that, because I think myself and a lot of really wonderful players around the world have proven that you don't have to master the entire clarinet family. You can choose to specialize, and there's nothing wrong with that. So follow your heart. Do not listen to the people that give you negative information and tell you can't do it or you shouldn't do it, and just do what feels right to you. If you think you can make it work, then you will find a way to make that work in your career. And I think students that think outside the box in that way should always be supported and encouraged.